Picture a guy named Daniel. Daniel is 27. He works in logistics. Not glamorous. He moves boxes, basically. Coordinates shipments for a mid-size company outside of Columbus, Ohio. Every 2 weeks, Daniel gets a paycheck. Every 2 weeks, he splits that paycheck the same way. Rent, food, car, savings. He's been doing this since he was 23. Same routine, no drama. But Daniel has a secret account. Not a crypto wallet, not a startup, not anything his coworkers would find impressive at happy hour. He owns shares of something so boring that his own mother fell asleep when he tried to explain it to her once. And every 3 months, that boring thing pays him money. Not because he worked, not because he showed up anywhere, just because he owns it. So let's talk about what Daniel actually figured out and why most people walk right past this idea without ever stopping. There's a version of money most of us only know one way to get to. You show up, you do a thing, you get paid. That's the only model most of us are ever taught. Nobody sits a 10-year-old down and says, hey, someday you can own a piece of a company that's been paying people every quarter for 40 straight years, and it will send you a check whether you leave the house or not. That's not in the curriculum. So we grow up believing the only way to get paid is to trade something for it. Time, skills, energy. The deal is always, you give something, you get something. Dividends break that deal. When you own dividend-paying shares, the company's profits flow to you automatically. You don't negotiate it, you don't apply for it, you just own the asset, and the asset does its job. Daniel figured this out at 23, after watching his dad pick up a second job at 58 to cover a medical bill. He didn't want that to be him, so he started reading. And then he started buying. His first purchase was $3,000. He put it into a dividend ETF, basically a basket of stable, profit-sharing companies all bundled together. At roughly 4% yield, that $3,000 was going to pay him about $120 a year, $10 a month. His buddy laughed so hard he nearly choked on his beer. $10? Man, that's a Chipotle burrito. You could just not buy a burrito and have the same result. Daniel didn't argue. He just nodded and changed the subject. But here's what his buddy didn't see. Daniel wasn't trying to get rich off $3,000. He was trying to build a habit. And more importantly, he was trying to set something in motion that didn't need him anymore. That $120, he didn't spend it. He clicked a button that said reinvest dividends. The $120 bought more shares. Those shares would produce more dividends. Those dividends would buy more shares. A machine. Small, quiet, feeding itself. 4 years pass. Daniel is 31. The machine is bigger now. Not dramatically, but bigger. He kept adding money. Every raise he got, he pushed more in. When he got a tax refund, it went in. When he drove his old car instead of financing a new one, the difference went in. The account is sitting at around $40,000. At 4%, that's $1,600 a year coming in, $133 a month. Still not impressive by Instagram standards. Still nothing to brag about at a wedding. But Daniel sits down one afternoon and calculates what his $1,600 covers. His car insurance, $900 a year. His phone bill, $600 a year. That's $1,500. He stares at the math. His portfolio, this boring, invisible, unexciting collection of fund shares, is paying his car insurance and his phone bill every year without him doing a single extra thing. He never has to earn those dollars again. Now, here's where a lot of people make a mistake. It usually happens right around this point, when the account gets big enough to feel real, but not yet big enough to feel safe. Someone mentions a better deal. For Daniel, it came from a Facebook group. A guy in there was hyped about a real estate investment trust paying out 11% annually. On Daniel's $40,000, that's $4,400 a year, almost triple what he was getting. He pulled the chart. The payout was real, but the stock price had been cut in half over the past 3 years. The company was distributing money it couldn't actually afford to distribute. This is called a yield trap, and they're everywhere. The number looks amazing, right up until the company slashes the dividend and the stock falls another 30%. And suddenly you've lost more in price than you ever collected in payments. Daniel closed the tab, kept his boring ETF, kept the 4%. Because 4% from something stable beats 11% from something falling apart. Every single time, without exception. Daniel is 36 now. The account has crossed $120,000. $120,000 at 4% is $4,800 a year. $400 a month. Automatically, consistently. His rent is $1,100 a month. His portfolio isn't covering his rent yet, but it's covering almost 5 months of it. He thinks about this on a random Wednesday morning while stuck in a drive-through line. The car in front of him has a dealer plate. Brand new. Probably $600 a month payment. Daniel's car is paid off. Has been for 2 years. The heat works. The radio works. It gets him there. He pulls up to the window. Orders a coffee. Thinks, every month, I get $400 dropped into my account. And every month, the guy in that new car loses $600 before he even starts. That's a $1,000 swing every single month between 2 people in the same drive-through line. He hits $250,000 at 39. At this point, something changes. The numbers stop being hypothetical. $250,000 at 4% is $10,000 a year, every year, without selling anything, without touching the principal. That's $833 a month. Daniel isn't quitting his job. He likes his job. But something subtle has shifted in how he operates at work. His boss gives him a hard deadline on a Friday afternoon. Something unreasonable. The kind of thing that used to make his chest tighten. And this time, Daniel just pauses. Not dramatically. He doesn't flip a table or deliver a speech. He just pauses. And in that pause, he remembers. I have options. Not unlimited options, but options. I'm not trapped. He gets the work done, but it's the first time he notices that yes is now a choice instead of an automatic reaction. That feeling is worth more than the $10,000. He's 43 when the account crosses $500,000. $500,000 at 4% is $20,000 a year. There's a concept sometimes called the baseline, the minimum your life costs to function. Food, shelter, basic transportation, utilities. For most Americans, that's somewhere between $18,000 and $24,000 a year. Daniel's portfolio now covers his baseline, which means, technically, if everything else went sideways, he wouldn't go under. He could lose his job. The company could implode. His industry could vanish. And as long as he adjusted his lifestyle down to essentials, the portfolio would catch him. He's not going to test this. He's still working, still saving, still reinvesting. But something about knowing that floor exists makes him breathe differently. He's 46 when he hits $1 million. He doesn't pop champagne. He doesn't post anything. He doesn't tell his mother until 3 weeks later. He just sits at his kitchen table on a Tuesday night, opens the account, looks at the number, and thinks, so this is what that looks like. $1 million at 4% is $40,000 a year. He opens a tax calculator, types in $40,000, qualified dividends, his filing status. He hits calculate. The tax owed? 0. He reads it again. Below a certain threshold, actual tax law. Qualified dividend income gets taxed at 0% for people in lower and middle income brackets. The money flows in, and the IRS takes nothing. His coworker sitting 3 desks away earns a similar salary. A third of it evaporates to taxes before it ever lands in her account. Daniel's $40,000 arrives whole. He sits back in the chair. He doesn't feel rich. He doesn't feel like a different person. He feels like someone who did one thing consistently for 20 years without quitting. The thing about this kind of money is that it doesn't have a dramatic story. You can't tell it at a dinner party. You can't explain it in a 30-second video. There was no revelation, no single trade that changed everything, no perfect timing. Daniel never bought the right stock at the right time. He never got a hot tip. He never risked it all on something He just owned something stable, kept adding to it, never sold, never panicked, kept the dividends reinvesting for 20 years. And the machine, that small, quiet, self-feeding machine he built at 23 with $3,000 and his buddy laughing at him, turned into something that could fund the rest of his life. There's a 2026 Northwestern Mutual study that says Americans now believe they need $1.46 million to retire comfortably. Daniel's account is at $1.1 million when he reads that headline. He's not there yet by that measure. But he's also not scared, because he knows something that study can't capture. The number in the account matters less than whether the account is still growing. And his is, every quarter, without him doing anything. The machine is running. It doesn't need him anymore. You're probably not Daniel. Most people aren't. Most people have less saved than they want, more debt than they planned, a timeline that feels too short. But Daniel didn't start with an advantage. He started with $3,000 and a bad car and a buddy who thought dividends were a waste of time. The only thing that separated him from that buddy, who, by the way, is still working the same job, still leasing a new car every 3 years, still talking about retiring eventually, was one decision made at 23. Not a dramatic decision, not a brave decision. Just the decision to put money into something that paid him back. And then never stop.